Right now, as I speak to you, there is an old wooden fence post standing at the edge of my garden here in Okinawa. It has stood in that same spot through 40 rainy seasons and 40 burning summers, through typhoons that tore the roofs off houses, and it has never once been painted. It has never seen a drop of the stain they sell in the stores. And yet this morning when I ran my hand along it, the wood was smooth and dark and strong, without a single crack, without a spot of rot. My neighbor's fence, the one he stains every 2 years with the expensive cans, is already gray and splitting. Mine will outlive us both. The secret is a simple oil and a little bit of fire. Come closer, my friend. Let me show you wood. My name is Kenji Takara. I am from Okinawa, a small island in the south of Japan, where the salt air and the heavy rains destroy wood faster than almost anywhere on earth, and where my family has built and cared for its own wooden homes for 4 generations. My grandfather was a carpenter, and my grandmother kept the house, and both of them taught me that wood is not something you fight against with chemicals. Wood is something you make peace with. We live here by one word, and I want you to carry it with you today. Matenai. It means waste nothing. Not the wood, not the oil, not the years of a thing's life. Today, I will show you a method so old and so cheap that you will wonder why you have spent so much money for so long. And that is the real question, my friend. Why have you been made to spend so much? Let me tell you about the enemy. Walk into any hardware store in America and you will find an entire wall of wood stain. A single can, $25, $30, $40. And on the label, in small letters, it tells you the truth without meaning to. Reapply every 1 to 3 years. Every 1 to 3 years. That is not a product that failed, my friend. That is a product designed to fail on schedule, so that you must return, can after can, decade after decade. The stain companies do not want your deck or your fence to last 30 years, because a fence that lasts 30 years is 30 years of sales they will never make. For a family living on a fixed income, on a pension that does not grow while the price of everything climbs, that is hundreds and hundreds of dollars, brushed onto the wood and washed away by the rain, again and again, for the rest of your life. My grandfather would have shaken his head. Wood, he said, does not need a new coat of paint every year. Wood needs to be understood. Quick word before I begin, and I won't bring it up again. Everything I share here, there's far more of it than fits in one video. So I gathered it all into one book, The Takara Method. And right now I'm keeping it at a special price, lower than it'll normally be. The link's in the description, or point your phone at the code on screen. That's all. Now let me show you today's. Now, before I show you the method, I must warn you about the mistake that almost everyone makes. Because if you make this mistake, nothing I show you will work, and you will say, "Old Kenji was wrong." The mistake is this. People believe that protecting wood means sealing it, coating it, trapping it under a hard skin of stain or varnish. But wood is a living thing, even after it is cut. It breathes, it swells a little in the wet, and shrinks a little in the dry. And when you trap it under a hard chemical skin, that skin cracks as the wood moves beneath it. Water sneaks into the cracks, and it becomes trapped against the wood, where it rots it from the inside, faster than if you had done nothing at all. That is why stained decks peel and flake. The Japanese way is the opposite. We do not seal the wood away from the world. We change the wood itself, and we feed it an oil that soaks deep inside and moves with it. We do not build a wall on top. We build strength within. So let us begin. And the first step, the most powerful step, the one that will shock you, costs almost nothing at all, because it uses only fire. It is called yakisugi. In English, some call it shosugi-ban. It means, quite simply, burned wood. For centuries, we in Japan have preserved wood by charring its surface with flame. It sounds backward, I know. You wish to protect the wood, and I am telling you to burn it. But listen, when you gently char the outer surface of a board, that thin black layer of carbon becomes a shield. Fire cannot easily burn what is already charred. Water rolls off it, and insects, the termites and the beetles that eat a fence from within, will not touch charred wood. They cannot digest it. My grandfather charred every fence post he ever set into this ground, and that is why the post at my garden's edge has stood for 40 years untouched. A propane torch from the hardware store costs perhaps $20 one time and lasts for years of projects. That is all. You pass the flame slowly along the wood until the surface turns black and begins to shimmer, and then you stop. But the char alone is only half of the secret. If you leave it there, the black will rub off on your hands and your clothes, and over many years the surface will slowly powder away. My grandfather knew this, so after the fire, he did one more thing, one quiet thing, with an oil that costs a few dollars and lasts for years in the wood. He would take a soft cloth, dip it into that oil, and then, let me show you exactly which oil, and exactly how, because this is where the true secret begins. He would take a soft cloth, dip it into that oil, and rub it slowly into the still warm charred wood, letting the warmth of the char draw the oil down deep into the grain. And the oil he used, the oil my family has used for generations, is a natural drying oil. The finest for this purpose is called tung oil, pressed from the nut of a tree, or its close cousin, pure boiled linseed oil, pressed from the humble flax seed. These are not chemical stains, my friend. These are true oils, some of the oldest wood finishes known to humankind, used long before any factory existed. A quart of pure tung oil cost perhaps $15 to $20, and pure linseed oil even less, $10 or $12, and either one will treat a great deal of wood. Now understand why this matters so deeply. A drying oil is not like the oil in your kitchen, which stays wet and goes rancid. A drying oil soaks into the wood and then slowly hardens inside the grain itself, over days, becoming part of the wood rather than a skin on top of it. It does not crack, because it lives inside the wood and moves as the wood moves. It does not peel, because there is nothing to peel. Water beads and rolls away. And when, after several years, the surface finally begins to look a little tired and dry, you do not scrape or sand anything away, as you must with stain. You simply wipe on one more thin coat of oil, and the wood drinks it in, and it is renewed. There is no ugly buildup. There is no flaking. There is only wood, growing stronger and darker and more beautiful with each passing year. So let me give you the full method now, in order. step by step, so that you can do this yourself this very weekend. First, your materials. You will need one propane torch, about $20, and it lasts for years. You will need 1 quart of pure tung oil or pure boiled linseed oil, $10 to $20. You will need a natural bristle brush or a few soft cotton cloths, old cut-up bed sheets, or an old cotton shirt work perfectly, and that costs you nothing at all because you already have them. You will need a wire brush, a few dollars, and perhaps some mineral spirits to thin the first coat, though this is optional. That is the whole shopping list. For under $40 one time, you have everything you need to treat a fence, a deck, a raised garden bed, a bench, a door, and to keep them beautiful for the next 30 years. Step 1. Prepare the wood. It must be bare and it must be dry. If there is old stain or paint on it, that must come off first, for our method needs to touch the raw wood beneath. New, untreated wood is best of all. Make sure it is dry, not damp from rain, because you cannot char wet wood and oil will not soak into wet wood. Step 2. The char. This is yakisugi. Light your torch and pass the flame slowly and steadily along the grain of the wood, always moving, never stopping in one place, until the surface turns a deep, even black, and you see the grain begin to rise and shimmer. Do not rush this, and do not linger too long in one spot, for we wish to char the surface, not to set the board aflame. A light, even char is all you need. On a fence or a rough outdoor structure, you may char it dark and dramatic. On something you wish to keep looking like wood, a lighter pass will do. Let it cool. Step 3. Brush it. Take your wire brush and gently brush along the grain to remove the loose, powdery soot from the surface. This is important. It leaves behind the hard, stable char that is bonded to the wood and removes only the loose black that would otherwise rub off. Wipe it down with a dry cloth. Step 4. The oil. This is where the wood is truly fed. If it is your first coat on very thirsty wood, you may thin the oil a little, perhaps 1 part mineral spirits to 2 parts oil, so that it soaks in more deeply. Dip your cloth or brush and apply the oil generously along the grain, working it into the wood. You will see the wood drink it in and darken beautifully. Let it sit for 15 or 20 minutes so it can soak down. Step 5, and this step is the one most people forget, and it is the most important of all. Wipe off every bit of excess oil with a clean, dry cloth. Do not leave any oil sitting wet on the surface. A drying oil must be wiped nearly dry, because oil left pooled on the surface will stay sticky and gummy for weeks and never harden properly. Thin coats, wiped back, are the entire secret. It is better to apply 3 thin coats over 3 days than 1 thick coat that never cures. Let each coat dry a full day and apply 2 or 3 coats in all. And now I must give you a warning, an important one, for your safety, because matenai means we waste nothing, and we certainly do not waste a life through carelessness. The cloths you use with linseed oil or tung oil can, as the oil hardens, generate their own heat, and in a crumpled pile they have been known to catch fire on their own. This is real, and you must respect it. When you are finished, lay your oily cloths out flat, outside, to dry completely, or soak them in water in a metal can. Never ball them up and toss them in the trash. My grandfather taught me this before he taught me anything else about the oil. Respect the fire and respect the oil, and both will serve you faithfully for a lifetime. Now let me give you the extra layers, the small things that most people overlook entirely, that turn a good result into a result that will outlast you. The first thing overlooked is the choice of wood itself. If you are building something new, choose a wood that is already friendly to this method. Cedar, cypress, and pine take the char and the oil beautifully. Here in Japan, we most often use sugi, the Japanese cypress, but your American cedar is a fine and noble wood for this, naturally resistant to rot even before we treat it. Match the right wood to the method, and you have doubled your protection before you have even lit the torch. The second thing overlooked is that this oil is not only for outdoor fences and decks. Pure tung oil and pure linseed oil are safe and traditional finishes for the wood inside your home as well. A tired old cutting board, dry and gray, comes back to life with a rub of oil. Though for anything that touches food, use pure tung oil or food-grade mineral oil and no thinner. A wooden tool handle, an old chair, a scratched tabletop, a garden bench, the wooden spoons in your kitchen drawer, all of them can be renewed for pennies with the very same quart of oil. One purchase and the whole house is cared for. That, my friend, is Mottainai. Nothing bought that does more than one job. Nothing thrown away that could still be saved. The third thing overlooked is patience with the seasons. The best time to oil your wood is in dry, warm weather, when the wood is thirstiest and the oil will cure fastest. Do not oil in the damp and do not oil in the cold. Wait for a good dry stretch of days, and the wood will reward your patience. And once a piece is treated, you need only re-oil it every 2 or 3 years for outdoor wood, and far less often for indoor wood, and that re-oiling takes only minutes with no scraping and no mess. A fence that once demanded a full weekend of scraping and staining now asks only for a quiet hour with a cloth. Let me tell you now about my grandfather, and my grandmother too, because I want you to understand where all of this truly comes from. My grandfather's name was Seikichi, and he was a carpenter in our village all his long life. In those years after the war, there was almost nothing to be bought on our island, and even if there had been, there was no money to buy it. So the men of the village kept their homes standing with fire and oil and their own 2 hands, exactly as their fathers had before them. My grandfather would char the posts of a house black before setting them into the earth, and the old people would nod because they knew those posts would still be standing when the young carpenter who set them had grown old himself. And my grandmother, his wife, her name was Kiyo, and she kept the household accounts in a small, worn book beside the door. In Japan, we call this kakeibo, the household ledger, a tradition more than 100 years old, where a family writes down every coin spent and every coin saved, and by seeing it plainly on the page, learns to waste nothing. She would tease my grandfather that his charred fence posts were the finest bargain in all Okinawa, because she never once had to write down a single yen for their repair. She kept that book for 50 years, and when I look now at what a family in America spends on stain across 50 years, can after can I think of her small book and the long, empty column where that expense simply never appeared. That empty column was not nothing. That empty column was a grandchild's school shoes, a warm coat in winter, a little dignity kept instead of spent. And that, my friend, is why I speak to you today. So let us zoom out now, you and I, and look upon the whole picture together. When you buy that can of stain, every year or two for all the long years of your life, you are not only losing the money, though understand the money is very real, and across the decades it becomes thousands of dollars that could have stayed in your own pocket, in your own life, in the hands of the people you love. You are losing something greater still. You are handing your independence to a company that has quietly decided how long your fence is permitted to last. Every time we are made to believe that we cannot protect our own home with our own two hands, that we must return again and again to the store for a thing our grandparents did with fire and oil and patience. A small piece of our own dignity is taken from us. We hardly feel it go, but it goes. Yet hear me, my friend, for the opposite is just as true and far more powerful. When you take a torch and a cloth and a simple quart of oil, and you treat your own wood with your own hands, and you know, standing back and looking at it, that it will still be strong and beautiful 30 years from now, something is given back to you. You are capable. You are self-reliant. You are living the way human beings lived for thousands of years before anyone thought to sell us a product designed to fail. And for those of us who are older now, living carefully on what we have saved across a lifetime, this is no small thing. This is the difference between feeling helpless and feeling strong, between waste and dignity. This is what Motainai has always truly meant, not merely that we waste no wood and no oil and no money, but that we waste no ability still living within us, and no chance to live well and wisely with what we already hold in our own two hands. Your fence can outlast you. Your deck can outlast you. Your money can stay where it belongs. You have only, all these years, been quietly taught to spend it away. Now, before you go from me today, I ask just one small thing, and I tell you honestly, it would make this old man's heart glad. Down in the comments below, tell me where in the world you are writing from, what town, what state, what country you call home. I so love to see how far these old Okinawan ways will travel, from my small, quiet island all the way to your own back porch, wherever in this wide world you happen to be. And tell me this as well. What will you be the first to treat once you have your torch and your oil, the fence, the deck, or the old bench by the door? I read every single one. And stay close to me, my friend. Stay close, because in my very next lesson, I will reveal something that even the craftsmen in my own village guarded closely for years. There is a simple, natural mixture made from two humble things you almost certainly have in your kitchen at this very moment that will polish and protect the fine wood furniture inside your home, the tables and the chairs your family gathers around, better than any expensive polish sold in a can, and for almost nothing at all. My grandmother made it fresh, and the whole house smelled of it, and I promise you, I will show you exactly how. Until then, my friend, waste nothing. Mate nai.